What should public shareholders make of all of this? 96% of the company is held by the public, and even if you were to deduct the Invesco stake from it, which is roughly about 18%, we're looking at definitely over 75% shareholders trying to understand which side of this battle they stand on, what is in the best interests of the company. And here's where I also want to bring in the question of the role of the board. Uma, Murli, do you think that the board has done the work that it needs to, whether it is seeking more information on the Reliance proposal, whether it is today saying, hey, because let's remember, the conversation with Sony is still non-binding. So saying, hey, we want both proposals in front of the board to see which one is a better deal. Hey, we want to respect institutional shareholder rights and call for the EGM and then take care of the subsequent issues. Has the board done what the board needs to do as an independent board? Because this is not a promoter-run company. This is a diversified-led company. And what should public shareholders, non-Invesco, non-promoter shareholders, make of where this battle is going to head? Uma?
Yeah, thanks. So certainly the board should not take sides in this battle. The board should do what is best in the best interest of the company. So currently, it seems like, at least in the first scenario for Reliance, the board wasn't even aware of a deal. Now that the board is aware of a deal, perhaps it can also scout to see if this is the best deal or not, hire independent valuers to determine whether this transaction is fair in the interest of the shareholders. So what the board needs to do ultimately is to see whether this is in the interest of the shareholders as a whole, not just the individual shareholders, whether the currently diluted promoter or Invesco. So I think that's really the battle. And from the other shareholders' perspective, I think the question is whether it's Invesco or whether it's the board, are they acting in the interest of the company as a whole to consider these individual shareholders, or are these two battling parties acting in their own interest or not? And I think the board should make sure that it is not only transparent, but that it is acting fairly in the interest of the company as a whole.
Okay. Well, is it fair for me to assume that this can get resolved somewhat amicably if the board were to do an honest exercise of determining or evaluating both proposals from Reliance and from Sony, because both proposals involve Puneet Goenka continuing as the MD and CEO. So the leadership would remain the same in that sense. It's only because the Reliance proposal seems to have failed, that's my assumption, that Invesco has sought the ouster of Goenka. So if the board were to do its job, in fact, this could amicably get resolved, and they could, based on external party advice, determine which deal is better for the, all the stakeholders of Zee, and then proceed with that deal.
Absolutely. I agree with Uma, and I agree with what you say. The board comes out looking bad in this because it looks like it's being controlled by the Goenkas. That is the issue here. And the only way it can redeem itself is by behaving like an independent board. And it would go a long way if they requisitioned the meeting, had this discussion, been prepared to answer shareholders' questions there on how they came to these decisions, and then dealt with the 96% or how many ever percent who are not the Goenkas, and convinced them that they're still a board that runs this company, manages this company well, and has the shareholders' interests at heart. So that, I would think, is what the board should be doing. Call the EGM, have this discussion, and present the case to the shareholders. Running away from shareholders, not calling the EGM, just looks terrible for the board.
And I think that's the note we'll end on, because I was quite surprised as well. I saw the board note from last night where they've responded to the Invesco open letter to shareholders. There's a lot of name calling in that letter. There's a little bit of justification as well in that letter. But there is no mention of the fact that, hey, if there is an interesting proposal from another party out there, then it's our job to see if that proposal is equally good or better than what Sony is offering. And that's what we are going to proceed in doing. Maybe they will make that, decision in the near next few days. But as yet, the board has made no such mention whatsoever, except for the name calling that's been going on.